Then it's just me on my face.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's Job Train How Talent session. Hope you can actually, before we get started, let's just check for those that are with us this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you could just pop a quick message in the chat to say that you can see and hear us okay, that would be great. We're obviously live on Crowdcast this morning, but we are also live on LinkedIn as well. So hi to everybody that's joined us on LinkedIn this morning. Great, thanks, Laura. We'll give it a couple of minutes just to allow people to join, and then we'll get started with this morning's session. I'm really, really grateful to you, Suki, for joining us this morning from the Talent Labs. For those of you that may not be familiar with the Talent Labs is rebranded and was previously the Forum for In-House Recruitment Managers, so the go-to membership organisation for all things to do with talent. So the Talent Labs has now opened up beyond recruitment and talent acquisition to encompass the full life cycle of talent, which is really, really exciting. And I'm sure Suki will get into all of that in due course. A little bit of housekeeping for this morning. This is, while we're going to be covering a whole range of stuff, this is going to be an interactive session. So if any of you have any questions, queries, or anything else at all, please do feel free to pop them in the chat as we go through. We'll pick up your questions and we'll do our very best to answer them. So I think we've got pretty much everybody joined now. So let's get cracking.
Amazing.
So yeah, I'm Giles, director here at Job Train. I run these sessions pretty regularly, and obviously as Job Train we are an ATS, an applicant tracking system provider, but we're much more than that. And a big part of that, more than an ATS bit, is running sessions like this. We are very much all about sharing knowledge, insight, all kinds of stuff. And that's why I'm really, really glad that Suki could join us from the Talent Labs this morning. So Suki, would you like to give everybody a little bit of an introduction to you?
Yes. Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm Suki. I'm the head of membership experience at the Talent Labs. As Giles mentioned, we rebranded last year from the firm. I've been with the Talent Labs for about 9 months now, but prior to that, I did work in-house at CIPD, leading their internal recruitment and talent team for 4 years, delivered quite a lot of transformation and change there. Career site, ATS, you name it, we did it. And yeah, did it previous to that. I'd had a flourishing career in-house, actually. Did a bit of everything, a bit of agency, a bit of worked for Stepstone for a little while. So kind of I've done the recruitment block, I think. So kind of hopefully I'll be able to offer you some expertise and some skills and some insight into my knowledge today.
Brill, thank you so much, Suki. Alana, I can see that you can't hear us. Can everybody else hear Suki okay? Can we just pop a little message in the chat just before we just get cracking on and then we're leaving people behind?
Of course.
Sorry, you can't hear us, Alana. Perhaps if you leave and then rejoin, you might be able to. Just another thing. Oh, Alex, thank you. Okay. I think, yeah, we're all good. We're all good.
Thanks, thanks, Ashley.
So in terms of what we're going to cover this morning, probably quite a bit. So I know that Talent Labs do an awful lot of research into the talent market. So there's a big annual report that Talent Labs bring out. So we're going to have a little bit of a look at the current market overview, emerging trends, what's developing in the world of talent, and also what's shaping the landscape as well. Then we'll probably go into skills and capability a little bit, and we'll look at how you can build a future-ready talent team, and we'll qualify that as we go through, but how best to assess your existing skills, how to enhance your team's capability, and as we might want to move towards a bit more of a strategic transformation from being, let's say, potentially either at a recruitment administrative function and looking to move into a strategic talent function. And then we're going to talk about some practical steps that you can employ to shift your function into that strategic zone as well. And I know, Suki, you've got quite a lot of really good resource as well that you're going to share today. One of those is down here. So we've got an example of the Talent Labs example skills capture form, and I think we'll probably go on to explain a bit more of that as we go along this morning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Suki, I know you've got some slides and things you wanted to share. Is now the right time to bring those up? If so, I'm going to ask Laura in the wings if she can.
Yeah, let's get into it and let's go through all the beautiful slides that I laboured over for everyone. So Yes, welcome everyone again. So as I mentioned, I'm the head of membership experience. There's a very nice picture. Thank you so much. So we can move on to the next slide. Thank you so much, Laura. So, I want to jump straight into a labour market outlook. The way I've positioned our discussion this morning is to kind of give you a bit of an overview of the kind of things that you want to be thinking about when it comes to looking at your team holistically. So, everything I'm talking about is that holistic overview. And the reason why a labour market outlook is really valuable is because when you are shaping change and you're looking at how to accelerate or elevate your existing processes, function, systems, teams, whatever it might be, understanding what's happening in the world outside of your business is super critical. So if we look at what's happening in the labour market right now, and this is from the source of this has come from our annual report. It's also come from the labour market report that comes out from CIPD every quarter, and also some of the HR resources that we rely upon to help inform our research and our insights here at the Talent Labs. But when we look at what's going on in the labour market, 1 in 4 employers are planning for redundancies in this quarter and the next for this year. Quite a large number. So that's 25% of employers are looking at planning redundancies just because it's been so tricky with various other things. One of those things is rising costs for everyone. So we saw in the budget last year, employers are now having to pay more for national insurance and various other things to be able to retain and keep their employees. As a result, more than likely businesses are offsetting those costs onto their customers. So customers are also having to pay more to be able to engage with businesses. And this rising cost trend impacts businesses. And what they happen to do is they look at their biggest asset, which is their people, as a way in which to save money, which feeds into this planned redundancies outlook, which is quite challenging and it's quite difficult because what it means is that confidence is really sinking. So when we think about job seekers and the search for talent, the fight for talent and all those things, candidates more and more so are wary, they're cautious, they are, I'm sure many of you can maybe resonate with this message. They're a bit difficult, they're a bit tricky, they're hard to pin down, they're hard to win over, they'll negotiate to the nth degree. And that's because we've seen so much change in recent years post-pandemic, with what's happening politically, globally, and locally. Job seekers are in a place where they are a hot commodity on the market and they know it. And so their confidence in what employers are saying when it comes to salaries, packages, prospects, outlook, whatever it might be, it's sinking, unfortunately. And so they really do, when you're looking at how do you position or frame a role, or how do you position or frame an entire package, or when you're looking at strategic change across an area of your business because you've got a skill shortage, whatever it might be, these are the kinds of things that you need to be thinking about when it's looking at your systems and your processes that you rely upon to prop up your delivery as a team and as a function. And we'll deep dive into that a little bit more, what I mean by that. But things like your EVP, your candidate experience, what does your ATS do regards the workflow? Can candidates self-manage? Do they have visibility of where they are in the process? Things like that help you stand apart as an employer, and it helps just fight some of the things that we know are happening in the labour market, which is that lack of confidence. And as a result, what we're seeing is actually that there are shortages and drops in overall net employment. So net employment is the total number of people that are going to be employed in the employment market. And we see that there are skills shortages in certain sectors. So for those of you that might be coming from defence or from energy, you know that there's going to be a skills shortage in the market in the next few years just because of where we are regards population. We're seeing that of all the people that are available on the workforce or in the labour market, 16 to 24-year-olds, there is a massive gap in that space of available, ready to work, active job seekers. And also at the tail end of the population, so post 45, 50, we're also seeing that there's a gap there where there are just no people available. So when you're shaping your campaigns and you're shaping your strategy and you're looking at your workforce planning and you're looking at how do I plan my talent pipeline for a specialist area where I know there's a niche skill set, you need to be thinking outside of the box and much more holistically around how do I feed this talent pipeline and make sure that there are candidates in that for us, because we know that there's these drops of people available. We know that there are these shortages, and we know that people are being employed less and less. And whether this is because people are inactive because of well-being and health, post-pandemic, whether this is because everyone's become an influencer on TikTok and, they're reaping their millions, we just don't know. But we do know that there are shortages. So we need to be thinking as business leaders, how are we helping our organisation really plan for that and be equipped for what the future holds?
That's really
Next
interesting.
slide, oh, sorry, go on, Giles.
I'm interested to see if that's been anybody else's experience here so far.
Yeah.
They start to feel that pinch point. because certainly employer costs are about to go up pretty significantly into this year. Perhaps as a consequence, we're not starting to see inflation go up again. And
Yeah.
for sure, in terms of skill shortages, that means we've got to be a lot more creative. We've got to think about the people we're looking to target, reach. Where do they
Yeah.
exist? Where do they live? How can we approach them? And then, yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely try and engage them with probably differing messages according to different groups, with around EVP, employer brand, if you like, the deal. So what it's like to work. So what will an employee give as much as what will it take? And you're
And
absolutely right in terms of that candidate experience. It's got to be totally consistent. It's got to set really
yeah.
clear expectations, and you would be amazed by how many organizations still don't get that right. And it's so easy to actually
Mm.
stand out from everybody else by getting some of the basics nailed.
I think as well there are some sectors that historically have probably relied upon or have been propped up by like visa sponsorship, or have relied upon that being a way to kind of feed the funnel of candidates because they know they can just go like abroad and find the skill set. But unfortunately, as we saw at the end of last year, Home Office are really tightening their processes, who they're letting in, the skills that you are allowed to kind of recruit for externally. How that list has also tightened, and the weight at Home Office right now is just astronomical. So if you are an employer and historically you've relied upon in those peaks and troughs where you know that you've got incoming business and you rely upon like visa or sponsorship as a route, that probably isn't as available to you as it has been in the past. So all these things are becoming more and more relevant for everybody, rather than just the few. So yes, it'd be interesting to hear if anyone else has had this experience either on the ground or is feeling that in their business at the moment when they're looking at their talent pipeline.
That's
Yeah,
interesting,
I mean,
actually. Yeah, internal mobility. So yeah, Ashling says internal mobility is now more of a focus for us.
and that is, well, you have got a sneak preview on the slide ahead, but we see that in the emerging trends for HR, absolutely. So thank you. So yeah, so what we're seeing then, if we look at kind of what are the trends overall, again, holistically across HR, we're seeing that more and more people teams are having to contend with integrating advanced technologies. So gone are the days where you just have relied on an Excel spreadsheet, or you chucked everything into a payroll system and all your different systems were sat in silos. In order to drive efficiencies, in order to ensure that employee experience is not compromised, that you're able to pull out your data and to make sure that your people are really well looked after, you need to get your systems to talk to one another. So this is kind of really where, if you're a talent practitioner or a HR practitioner, the things that you care about are people practices. You're not a tech specialist, so how do you find the skills from this like tech side? So how do you know how to integrate or embed new technology? How do you understand what testing or UX or UI, all these things when it comes to kind of designing your candidate experience and making sure your systems talk to one another? These are some of the things that people practitioners are having to contend with right now, because it's just a super challenging market.
It's really interesting. You just pause there around tech
Yeah.
and integration. And you're so right. It's really, really important now that everybody wants their systems to talk to one another. But there's a couple of things here. First of all, I think it's a real challenge on we'll say talent professionals, because we aren't tech experts on the whole, and being asked to go out to market review and try and buy the right tech and buy it with confidence is a real challenge. And even once you've got to that point, you've got to consider what are the other touch points for that tech, data, how can that best be shared, how can that experience be seamless, and that is, it's comes with a fair degree of risk, sometimes a little bit of fear in terms of getting it right. I will add that we're more than happy to help there. I know we've already written a guide on how to buy an ATS, which is pretty much well aligned with buying tech in general. And certainly if you have any questions around integration stuff, we're here to help. And that isn't with us going in saying we want to sell your job train, but simply if you've got any questions and things, if you want to try and demystify the world of integration and what have you, we're more than happy to help.
And that's a really useful point, Giles, because one of the things I would say is now more than ever, practitioners have to be relying upon their suppliers and partners that they work with who are the experts. So I think what often happens is, especially if you're an only, like maybe you've got a small HR team and you deliver for like a business that's 500 plus, you just don't have the headspace. So you need to work with trusted partners that you can rely upon when it comes to their counsel, their guidance, and their expertise to help shape and inform your thinking. If you've got the luxury and the time to have a person within your team freed up to become the tech specialist that can help counsel and guide you internally, great. But it's unrealistic that that's going to happen. So when you're speaking with organizations such as yourselves that, rely upon them and lean upon them for whatever guides and resources you can get, because every bit helps. Every bit helps, because we're the jack of many trades in HR, aren't we? There's so many things that we have to do.
Absolutely.
So additional HR trends that we're seeing then. So well-being and employee experience is becoming more and more relevant. So this feeds into hybrid working. What's it look like returning to work post-pandemic? What are we saying the shape and size of our role is regards time in the office, time at home? All these things are driving job seeker behavior and job seeker decision making in a way that they probably didn't before. Things that people ask about now as part of offer negotiation are probably going to be things like, what's your bereavement leave? What's your policy around carers leave? I've actually got someone post-pandemic who has got long COVID, still isn't well. I still have to check in on my mom. She's high risk. What flexibility do I have? These kinds of things are super, super important to our people today. So bearing in mind, we are in a world now that we have to be prepared for literally anything that might happen at the drop of a hat. These kinds of like really robust processes that sit behind your core delivery are really critical, and they will give you the competitive edge, I think, against other employers in the space. If you know that you have, even if it's just like a duvet day, think about what do your rewards and benefits look like in your business, and how can you make sure that your people feel like they can be the best version of themselves, they can turn up authentically in their roles, and that they have buy-in to you as an organization. These kinds of things are super critical, and I think it's your talent team's responsibility to really draw that out and knit that into those conversations you have with candidates as part of your recruitment processes, because just listing it as a list of benefits on a job advert just doesn't cut it. Like, you need to be saying to people, so I'm a single mom, I have 3 children. When I was working in-house, one of the things I used to say to people is, I work really flexibly. What that means is I can do the school run every morning and every afternoon and I don't feel guilty. It means that I can go to an assembly, I can take an afternoon off if I need to go to a workshop where I've got to make braids and key rings for half an hour with my daughter. Do you know what I mean? Like the things that they ask parents to do at schools these days. And bringing that to life for a candidate and speaking to their real needs is what they need. They need you to do that because they don't know what it's like to work for Joe Blogs and co. You need to bring that to life. So that well-being and employee experience is so critical and so important. And what's interesting is well-being is one of those things that I think we kind of leave it as like fluffy stuff, but actually, if you look at all your talent processes, so Aisling mentioned earlier that internal mobility is super important. Well, what are we doing to ensure that if we are moving someone from business unit A to business unit B, how are they being supported in that transition? Do they get coaching? Is it a relocation issue? Are they getting funded? Are they getting supported with that? Are they moving to another country? Are they getting a guide on like how to embed themselves in a new tax system? Like all those kinds of things are well-being related, and I think we often think well-being is just like mental health first aiders, and it's much, much, much more than that. So if you don't know about it, get to know about it. Like, it's so critical. And again, I think it's one of the things that will allow you to have the edge between your competitors in the market. I mentioned earlier, Aisling mentioned earlier, sorry, that internal mobility thing. Again, and developing internal talent is so, so critical to your talent pipelines for the future. So looking at what talent did you recruit 2 years ago? What have they delivered and what have they achieved? And actually, how can they continue to deliver for your business, but maybe in a different capacity? How can I look at the core skills that they're utilizing? Is it stakeholder management, communication, and project planning? What other areas of my business really need those core skills, and who do I know that's doing that well? And how can you, they've already got buy-in to you as a business. They're working for you right now. They are your hot property candidates, as it were, that you can go to straight away to kind of sell and shape an opportunity to kind of deliver some of that tricky stuff, especially for businesses that are evolving and delivering change at the same time. So building out your internal development of your talent is super critical right now.
Couldn't agree more, and it shines a light on the importance of organisations considering a shift away from an isolated recruitment function to more of a holistic, all-encompassing talent function. because
Mhm.
then almost like the employee life cycle and thinking about succession
Exactly.
planning, all those things start to feed into more of a talent strategy rather than a simple recruitment one. And I guess
And
that's what we'll talk about.
well, yeah, exactly. And there's so much stuff that you learn from that recruitment and selection process. But where's that information go? We just lose it because it just sits with the recruiter in order to get it over the line, and then poof, it disappears. But actually, we've got the knowledge, we've got the intel. If we were to apply that, either putting together an individual development plan for someone or mapping out what their onboarding and induction needs to look like for the first 3 months, working with the manager to make sure they pass probation, and giving that manager hints and tips and guides to ensure that person continues to grow and excel. Actually, what you're doing is you're growing your talent rather than just filling vacancies. And it's a shift in mindset. So you're right, Giles, we're going to talk a bit more about how to elevate your function, but it starts at the beginning of your processes. So shifting the mindset of, rather than just filling a process and going through filling a vacancy and just churning, which can sometimes feel like that, and stuck on a wheel and you're going mad, like I've been there. Actually just taking a minute to reflect and step back and saying, actually, I think I found someone pretty special. We all know that moment when we get butterflies on our tummy, when we found some really amazing talent for our business. Just taking the minute to think, okay, well, how else can I help this person be the best they can be in our business and make sure they're set up for success? Like those, it goes a really long way when it comes to kind of really helping your business deliver long term.
Right.
One of the last, go on, sorry, Giles.
No, I was going to say I could not agree more, and I don't know how many organisations have managed to nail it. And you think about the amount of data you collect from candidates
100%.
during the recruitment process, including things like skills assessments or values assessments and stuff, which presents you with a profile of that person and also where the gaps or the opportunities for development are. And I think sometimes that is so often lost between the recruitment process and when somebody onboards and then starts their employment.
100%. Do you know what, as well, as you were talking, it just made me think that part of thinking a bit differently about how you use information that you get from candidates in the selection and assessment process will actually enable you to think a bit differently about, how do I upskill my team to make sure that they're able to think like that? So actually, outside of just filling a vacancy and negotiating an offer and closing a thing with a candidate, actually, what is my business partner, my talent business partner, doing to ensure that from a stakeholder perspective, the managers are feeling really well supported? How are they bridging those gaps between L&D and recruitment and our talent teams? And it's just, again, it's that elevation, it's that kind of thinking a bit differently. The last trend that I wanted to mention is kind of EDI. So I feel like EDI has been kicked around, I would say probably for the last 5-6 years. So especially like in the pandemic, post George Floyd, post Black Lives Matter, like I feel like everyone jumped on the EDI bandwagon. Everyone was talking about EDI. Everyone was excited and passionate about it. But I feel we are now a few years on, and we are really no further forward when it comes to meaningful EDI practices in our organisation, so that candidates feel like they are safe, psychologically safe, when it comes to declaring. And we know that there's more of them than ever post-pandemic as well. So declaring disabilities, declaring reasonable adjustments. Is your platform accessible? How do you make sure that people are really well supported? How are you looking out for returning moms or returning parents, single dads? What's your paternity and maternity leave? Like these kinds of things. I think we talked about it, but we haven't done very much. And when we're thinking about, again, dealing with a competitive labour market, knowing that there's talent shortages, knowing that costs are rising, and the cost of going again with a vacancy that we're not able to fill and going again, with a campaign. If we were able to just look at, okay, actually, if we looked at our paternity leave or our maternity leave, and can we do anything a little bit different that helps us stand apart? Or can we do anything about our approach to supporting, or do we have employee network groups? How do we make sure that people turn up as their most authentic selves? How do we ensure that people really feel really well supported in their roles? How do we make sure that people of a different faith or a different sexual orientation or different race feel included and belong in our business? Again, just thinking differently about stuff that you're already doing will enable you to kind of bridge the gap for those talent shortages and build yourselves like a really high profile as like an employer who is trusted, not just like an employer of choice, but an employer who is trusted. You have fair processes, you're inclusive, candidates feel like they can be their authentic selves with you. And if they do have mental health or physical challenges post-pandemic, they can declare that as part of the process because you already have policies and practices in place that support them. And
Yeah.
I think this is what employers are really missing at the moment.
Brilliant. Thank you. Next slide.
No worries. Yes, next slide, please. I feel like I've talked for ages already. Okay, so Your strategy. So some of the things that I would encourage you to do is, we've talked about this, is like, what is your competitive edge? What is it that stands you apart from joeblogs.co down the road? And how do you make sure that when you're fighting for talent in the market, that you have a holistic package? So this isn't just pounds and pence in the salary, but your holistic overview of your rewards, your benefits, your policies, the ways in which you work, the ways in which you develop your internal talent. What can you bring to life as part of your recruitment campaigns and your talent attraction strategies to ensure that candidates pick you? So we'll have a look at your competitive edge. What's that look like? The other thing I'd encourage you to do is, bearing in mind that costs are rising, and this technology piece, this roaring beast in the background for many organizations is kind of overflowing. What are your real critical people projects that you need to deliver to be successful? So I think what often happens is we just get stuck in this loop of, so and so said it, so we're doing it, or I inherited this when I took in the role, and we're just moving forward. And as is always the case with people related projects, it grows arms and legs, because if you're looking at technology or implementing a new technological solution, actually, what's the AI roadmap? What's the content roadmap? What's the, where's that going? Oh, actually, in 3 months' time, we'll be ready for it, but we're not ready for it now. And these conversations seem to just go on forever. So really think about what are your critical people projects that you need to deliver, that you want to deliver, and that you can do well. HR already has a bad rep. Recruitment is the first place to get blamed when things aren't being done. So what can you do well to make sure that your stakeholders feel really well supported? And then the last part of looking at your strategy is really building out not only your core skills for delivery. So this is, what talent do I have in my team to deliver a really detailed, heavily spreadsheet focused project for this piece of work, and who do I have that I can rely upon to shape and negotiate and challenge and push back and give feedback. And that's the skills within your team, but also what's the toolkit, what are the resources that I'm giving my team to ensure that they can do this job and they can do it well? Am I just relying upon them absorbing information by osmosis from reading a LinkedIn article, or am I actually intentional in their growth and their support and their toolkit so they can do the best job?
Brilliant. Great. On to the next slide.
Yeah. Yes, please. So what I'd like to do is think about how do you develop your capabilities within your team? So I talked about this holistic view. I won't say it anymore because I feel like I've exhausted the phrase, but have a look, really think about that. Think long term. Often is the case, we kind of end up in this reactive cycle of, I just need to get through this month, I just need to get through this quarter. As soon as we get to year end, or as soon as we get to the end of our financial year, I'll have some breathing room. But the reality is you just never do. So don't wait. Just have a look at forward planning and thinking about what can be done. Have a look at the job design for your team. So if you are really trying to elevate from a transactional, process orientated function to a service led, elevated function, what in the job design of your roles, and this isn't job description, these are two different things. Job design is, what are the skills that I need for my business partners to be effective business partners? What do I need from my payroll specialist or my tech or my HR project lead? What do I need skills wise to ensure that role is successful? And I think often we get stuck in a place where, and we've all been guilty of it, where we design a job around a person, but we don't think strategically enough about, what does my organization need to deliver X, Y, and Z goals, especially if you're in a role of leadership, because you've got so much to crack on with. Our annual report at Talent Lab showed that more and more teams are having to do less with more. So, more than likely, some of you may have already had to make cuts to your team, unfortunately. So you're stuck in a space where you've got less in your team, you've got more to do than ever, you've got all these other things going on regards to technology and projects. What do you do? So again, developing your capabilities and looking at the core skill sets that you've got. It's unlikely you're going to need cookie cutter versions of one person to deliver excellent service. So what's the complement of skills that you need? And doing less with more, what does that really look like for you as a function? Does that mean you're doing less roles, or does that mean that you're doing less regards process? Can you lean upon your systems more? Can you cut out some unnecessary process? How can you make it easy for your stakeholders to do business with you and use your service? And a big part of this is really championing the change that you want for your business. So if for example, manager capability is one of the things that we hear come up quite a bit when we speak with our members, and when we speak with I'm sure you've heard the same as well, Giles, when it comes to working with organizations. Manager capability is the thing that lets you down regards process time and time again. So actually, how do you champion what you want a good manager to be doing, how do you champion that? So if it is you expect your managers to own difficult conversations and whatever it might be, how are you helping them do that? Are you having difficult conversations with them? Are you challenging them as much as you're expecting them to challenge you back, or give robust feedback with the candidates? And a key part for me is really promoting a growth culture. So if you've got 60% or 70% in your person within your team that can do the job, how do you grow the other 30 or 40%? Is it you're really creating and carving windows of time with intentionality so that your people feel like it's safe enough for them to take time out to invest in their knowledge, invest in their skills, invest in their growth so they can deliver long term? How are you, as a manager or as a leader of your team, or even as a partner to your managers, how are you really showing them what learning and what the benefits of investing in your development, what that really looks like? That growth culture is so critical, because if you are in a sliding landscape where you're having to look at your internal mobility programs, really encouraging that learning and encouraging people to step out of their comfort zones, they're only going to do that if they know that it's a safe culture to grow within.
Yeah, totally. So I'm interested, perhaps we'll get onto this in a little while. And Laura, I might actually ask you if you could just upload the skills capture form, because I think it's really good, because you might start this and think, well, what skills should I be assessing? Even like trying to understand what skills are required for different role profiles. And I think if you move from, as you say, a bit more of a transactional recruitment function to a strategic one, the structure of that team is going to look quite different in terms of roles, responsibilities, or the people required within that team. And therefore the skills required in each role profile is going to differ a little bit as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think as well, if you know that in your business areas, you've got niche, you've got difficult managers, or you've got a niche skill set, or, and I appreciate I'm speaking like across generalist terms, but you might be recruiting in the field engineers. They're only ever in the field. They're never in an office. They don't care about employee experience. All you care about is if they've got the skills and the qualification to do the job. I get that. That doesn't mean that the quality of the process should be any less diminished. And it doesn't mean that the development of your talent team that are supporting and growing the recruitment process for those types of roles is any less needed, because they might only be doing that today, but in 6 months' time or a year's time, as your function continues to grow and develop and evolve, you might be able to want to, take these people in niche areas and plop them in somewhere else, or champion something somewhere else. So it's really critical. When it's hard, and I will say that finding the thinking time is one of the things that I think we miss a lot, especially in broader people teams. I get that, but I think that the key thing is taking the thinking time where you can to look at, okay, in 6 months' time, I want to, even if you do it from a project's perspective. So I know that in 6 months or a year's time, we as a people function are going to have delivered X, Y, and Z, and then trace it back that way. What do I need from my team to deliver that? Or if I look at our growth strategy or our business, like our overarching business objectives and our strategic goals, what do we need as a people function to be able to enable and deliver that, and work your way back that way? Because because it can be hard sometimes when you're stuck in the weeds. Like, I completely empathize. And what I would say is, outside of this session, connect with me on LinkedIn. If you want to pick my brains at any time, I'm always here. Like, I a problem shared is a problem halved, I think. So feel free. Are we happy to go on to the next slide?
Yep.
So this is the bit that I want us to kind of really deep dive into a bit more. So we talked about kind of elevating your function and moving it along. And I've talked about some of these themes already, but I want to kind of hopefully spend just a few minutes. Have I got like 5 or 10 minutes? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah, just to kind of look at each. Yeah, to look at these in detail. So when we talk about being active and intentional about development, what this means is, if you are a team lead, or if you know that you're a manager within your function and you don't have the headspace to know what's happening in the trends, you rely upon webinars like these to inform you of what's happening, what's going on in the space outside of my business to inform me. Get your team involved too. Lighten the load, lighten your own mental load, so that your team can also do some of the front lifting for you. They also want to grow their own careers. And that you might not be able to keep them for the next 5 years if you do that, but you know what, that's a sign of a great manager. If your team can come, they grow, they flourish, their careers move on to something more exciting and sexy, that's great for them and great for you, because you're also growing as a people leader, and you just keep on bringing in fresh talent to help drive innovation and growth within your business. You as a manager have to be really comfortable with that, and accept that might be a reality. You can't always hold on to the same people for the next 20 years. And if we do that also, it means we're not bringing any fresh ideas, we're not bringing in a fresh perspective. So be really active and intentional. So make sure that your team are involved, give them the autonomy, give them the trust and the freedom to invest in their growth, sign them up to a webinar, send them to an event, whatever it might be that you feel that you need. Obviously, don't just send them to anything, but if you know that you've got and I know we keep talking about technology, but it's so relevant right now. But if you know that in 3 months' time you're going to be bringing in, or you're going to be, tendering for a new ATS, send them to some tech talk, send them to some, there's always stuff going on, just so they can start to build their inspiration. Half of delivering effectively in the people space is just being inspired to do a great job and using your judgment and your decision making to make sure that the processes are followed to the best that they possibly can be followed to. So and I can't stress this enough, being active and intentional is more than just take an hour out and read a book. Do you know what I mean? Or read this article. You as a people leader, or even if you're a business partner, share articles that you read on LinkedIn with your colleagues and your peers. Oh, I found this really interesting read, have a go. Invest in your own development, invest in your own growth, read a book, share the insights with your team. Oh, I saw this, it was really exciting. Oh, I watched this really great webinar with Giles and Suki at Job Training. There's some really, just share and create the conversation, create the interest and inspire. It's so critical. Yeah. Because that is how you bring in creative and fresh thinking. That's how you bring in the ideas, and that's how you problem solve together, right? So how are you going to have a fresh perspective on how to tackle some things unless you've got some fresh thinking? Giles, what were you going to add? Sorry.
I was just going to add, so I'm picking out one of these here. So, for example, you've got talent intelligence and sector experts. So I know that data is something that a lot of people still find really overwhelming. But it is so important now because there is so much data available to us, and there are so many tools that we can use to surface that data into meaningful, actionable insights, or looking forward in terms of forecasting and whatnot. And I can only speak from a job training perspective, but as an ATS vendor, we actually have an in-house talent intelligence team, and they're set up to support our customers in understanding how to get their head around data and how to use data more effectively. We're only too happy to help our clients to do that and elevate their own knowledge. So don't sit there in isolation thinking, oh my God, how am I going to get training to help people to understand data, for example? If you're working with partners and vendors, quite often they'll be really happy to help out too. So feel free to lean on key partners to deliver some of that knowledge.
100%. And the thing about talent intelligence and sector experts is that we often think we have to be the expert in everything. But if you're doing a piece of benchmarking, for example, so if you've run a campaign, say you're looking for a cybersecurity expert, you've run your campaign, you've not been able to fill it, and then you think, okay, what do I do next? Your pool of experts that you reach out to could be your vendors, it could be your suppliers, it could be someone that you met at a networking event, it could be an agency, it could be anybody that you're working with that is much closer to the detail and how to draw insights and decipher that. So when we look at talent intelligence, yes, there are digital tools that you can implement as a people practitioner to help you elevate your own knowledge. So whether this be some of the tools that I used to use Lightcast. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of it, but it's like it's a platform that helps measure job posting activity. So it looks at, actually, if I know that I'm looking, if we use a cybersecurity example again, so if I know that I'm looking for a cybersecurity specialist, how many people have posted for a cybersecurity person in the last 6 months in Birmingham? And if I can see that actually there's been 25 postings, but only one application, I know that's already a tight market in which to recruit within. So that might mean, actually, do I want to advertise? Do I want to headhunt? Do I want to do some direct sourcing? Do I want to engage an agency? What do I want to do to shape the delivery on this campaign to drive the results? That's the kind of thing that I mean by talent intelligence. It's not just being an amazing expert in all things talent all the time, because that's just not realistic. But it's making sure that you're really pulling on the resources. If you're a tech recruiter, I'm more than likely you're using things like IT Jobs Watch to look at what's the median salary, what are the things that people are paying elsewhere. Glassdoor, even that is like a really great resource just to look on and find out what are people saying about businesses that are similar to this, or what are the salaries that people are paying, so that you can help shape your campaign in the most effective way. I'm not going to plug any of the platforms, but if you're even on certain social platforms, if you're a social media expert on LinkedIn, there's ways in which, even without having buying the super expensive stuff, even in Recruiter Lite, there's ways in which you can extract salary information and job seeker behavior and activity to inform your campaigns. And that is what is the talent intelligence bit, so that you have this holistic overview. You can go into a really meaningful vacancy briefing conversation with your stakeholder and say, do you know what, Bob, I've tried to look in the market and I can actually see, if we run this campaign now, this time last year there was only 4 people available on the market, and actually they're looking for 10 grand more than we're paying. What do you want to do about it? And that might then inform a conversation that says, let's look at our internal talent pool. How can we grow some internal skills? Or actually, let's look at our apprenticeship levy. Maybe we need to bring in some fresh blood and invest in an apprenticeship. Like, there's loads of different ways to problem solve, rather than just tearing your hair out because you can't find the person for the role.
Okay.
And your pool of experts outside of your business is one of those critical places. Get your tech and your systems do the heavy lifting. I think we're stuck in this place where we have a lot of manual stuff and a lot of manual controls. And way back when I used to work for a manufacturer, and we used to do this thing after every campaign where we wanted to look at what did we spend, like how many people were in the funnel, what did we do here, and we had to manually do it all, because we didn't have any system, any one center of truth that allowed us to extract, actually, we spent so much on Indeed, we spent so much on a job board, we spent so much here, and actually we had 64% of our applications came from there. If you don't have that already, get it, because that information is so insightful when it comes to shaping your next campaign. As a business, let's be honest, you're not recruiting brand new roles every single year. More than likely, 80%, 70% of your roles that you're recruiting year to year are roles that you already know, that you've done them before, you've filled them before, something similar. You might have changed your job title, the reporting line might have changed, but the core skills are the same. So what did you do last time? You've done it already, but just extract it from somewhere. If you don't have that, get your tech system now. Invest in an ATS that enables you to bring those dashboards to life, because it will make yours and your team's job a lot easier, so that you can focus on the juicy stuff that you need to be working on to deliver some of your people projects.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Please. Next slide.
Go on, sorry. No, I think this is the last one, but I just want to mention the leaders. Yeah,
oh,
I just
yeah,
wanted to
sorry.
mention. Yeah, it's okay. I just wanted to mention the leadership bit. So I think, and I'm sure many of you resonate with this, but sometimes you can be tearing your hair out when it comes to your leadership teams, your SLT, because you've got buy-in for a people project. They signed it off way back when, but as you started to deliver it, things changed. I think we have a responsibility to make sure that SLT or our leadership teams, or whoever it is that signs off everything at the top, they are the ones that are cascading and filtering and sponsoring everything we do at every step of the way. So if we're getting a new tech system in, don't let the dialogue or the undercurrent of conversation become that the tech system's a blocker. Make sure that SLT are advocating and saying, yes, but in the long term, it will allow us to do this. We want to be able to get this dashboard. We want these people analytics. If we know that we are looking to change our approach to developing our people, again, get your leadership team to really be endorsing that and sending the messaging from top down, because they need to be the ones that really support and champion the change for you, because otherwise, what's the point? What are you doing otherwise? Because what you're delivering as a people function is for your business, and so your business needs to reward and recognize and shout from the screens, from the rooftops about it, really, and really ensure that you are really well supported. So if you don't have a good relationship right now, get to have one. Invest in that, build the rapport, understand what the drivers are for your leadership teams, understand what their blockers are, what things that they need to see from you as a people team to ensure that they have confidence, and work on it as part of elevating your function from that transactional delivery space to we are business partners that help advise and shape the decisions that our business makes, because they trust us and we do a great job and we're amazing.
Brilliant. Love it. I was wondering, you've got quite a lot of free stuff, really helpful resources to share, yes, which we can't just share probably within here. What we'll do is after this session, we'll write a bit of a summary blog follow-up, and we'll make sure that all of you get the resources that Suki and Talent Labs have very kindly shared with us. But one of the things that did catch my attention was the skills capture form. So when you're looking at, or maybe perhaps let's say a skills gap analysis in terms of what do I need within my function and what do I have, or recruiter capability, I really like your form, and I was wondering, Laura, whether you could just bring it up so we could just have a little bit of a look. That'd be amazing.
And this is a great exercise to just undertake when you just want to think, which I mentioned earlier. You sometimes, and so this does some of the heavy lifting and the thinking for you. So if you just list all the things that you know that your team need in order to deliver your end-to-end talent process. So we've got one that's a working example and one that's a blank one, because I appreciate not every talent team has the same, not all the core skills, but you can see here we've got like vacancy brief, it's candidate experience, EVP, like what do we need as a skill? And actually you can either do it person to person, you can do it whole team by whole team, or unit by unit, whatever it is that you think works for you. But this is an exercise for you as a leader, or as as a manager of an area, to look at what skills do I need, what do I have, and you can quickly plot out what's missing and what's not missing. And if you know that one of your critical projects is to ensure a really great onboarding and induction process, and if you know that at offers and onboarding you've got a weak spot, you can bring laser focus to that almost straight away after this exercise.
Yeah, this matrix is so helpful. It's a little bit difficult to see on the screen, but by all means, just grab it from the link down below and you can go into it.
Yeah.
But it's such a helpful resource. And what we've got on the second page is probably a little bit difficult to read.
Yeah, it just breaks down the definitions for when we're saying vacancy briefings. What do we say? What are we saying that is? When we're saying, is it being able to identify? Is it being able to shape? Is it being able to negotiate? When we say social media marketing, what are we saying that is? The definition of that is someone that understands how to drive attraction, how to create engaging content, how to drive likes and whatever it might be. This is there just to give you some guidance on what are we saying those skills are that we need. What I will also say, actually controversially, is that you might realise some of the skills that you need you might not have in your team anywhere, and you might think, do you know what, I might just outsource it, or I can find a technological solution to fix that for me. So it's not even necessarily that you need to grow the skills, you just need to find a solution to copywriting, for example, or data dashboards. If you get a really good ATS that can just give you the metrics on the other side of the activity that your team are already doing, you don't need a data expert because you've got a system that does it for you. But as a manager, it just gives you a chance to just get your ducks aligned, get the pieces right. And you can do it in collaboration with your team. So you can maybe do it as part of a one-to-one discussion, which is why we've got this employee commentary box here. Or you can do it with your peers across your people function, whether you've got a counterpart in L&D or a counterpart in HR that you want to do it with. It's entirely up to you, but it's a good way, rather than doing like a standard 9-box grid or something like that regards talent mapping. This gives you real laser focus to what's needed for the talent life cycle. Interestingly, one of the other resources that we've provided you with is a time and motion study. Now, this was done at the end of last year, and what was really fascinating about this is that the time and motion study actually, for the first time ever, did a deep dive into what do recruiters actually do. So what are we doing? Where are we going? How much time do we spend on writing an advert? How much time do we spend on sourcing and screening our candidates? And actually, if you have a little read of that and a scan of that, you can maybe transpose some of the information from there into the skills form, because you can start to see, actually, these are the skills that I know people spend their most time on investing in or learning or trying to get to grips with, and this is what I recognize I might need in my team. So they kind of go hand in hand, because you can get real insight into what a recruiter is doing, how they're spending their time, and also how does that translate into pounds and pence for my business. So if you need to put together a business case to recruit a new head, or to add another body, or to invest in some technology to be able to fix some problems within your team, that's a very good way in which to kind of compile that business case for you.
I've only read the time motion study, but it's really, really good. And on a couple of fronts, perhaps it's not something that we will typically do, but when you've gone through it and almost done your own audit and understood where is all the time being taken, or where does it need to be invested, you can sometimes then start to work out, right, are there other tools that can help me to drive some efficiency? 100%. So in terms of free tools, that might be looking at how generative AI can reduce the time spent on a particular task, and then upskilling the team so that they've got some confidence in terms of things like using prompt engineering to get the right responses if they're using, for example, ChatGPT. It may be that you may be thinking, oh, well, I think I need a new piece of tech. However, you might suddenly find through the time and motion study that actually that piece of tech, beautiful, shiny piece of tech you thought you needed actually isn't going to have a huge amount of impact, or conversely, that is going to have a huge impact, and that is the basis for your business case. You've got that time motion study, and you can prove really clearly to leadership that introducing this piece of technology will save this amount of time, free up this amount of resource, then suddenly you've got a really compelling business case. So I would definitely advise you grabbing that as well. And there we go. Brilliant. So we'll make sure that all those resources are available to you following this session, because there is a whole load of stuff. And if you haven't got the time, headspace, or what have you, in terms of looking at recruiter capability, all those types of things, then this is where the Talent Labs can come in and help, isn't it? This is my plug for you.
Yeah, I mean, so Talent Labs, we are a membership community where you have access to peer-to-peer networks. We have 4 different networks in which you can tap into. So whether you're a strategic leader, whether you're a business partner, whether you're an admin, whatever it might be, you can kind of come in, tap into that peer-to-peer network and that peer-to-peer knowledge to help inform and shape. We have a whole host of information on our resource library, which is actually where I've pulled the resources from for you today, that you'll be able to access. So the resource library is full of templates, toolkits, guides, insights, reports, you name it. And if that wasn't enough, we even do events like these. So we have virtual and in-person events that are all focused around anything talent related, and that within the membership you're able to kind of sign up to as many events as you want that are online. And this year our focus is around 4 key strands: so talent management, optimizing teams, technology, and data. So if you don't know about it and you want to get to know about it, let us know and we can help you out.
Amazing, Suki. Wow, we've covered so much in just 50 minutes, but that's been so helpful. And you never would have guessed it, but Suki's been feeling really, really under the weather with some kind of flu-like thing. And was even worried yesterday about whether she could do today's session. Not that you wouldn't know. Your energy and enthusiasm and the amount of content you covered is just incredible. So I can only off everybody here say thank you so much for your time this morning.
No, it's been absolute joy.
I don't think I've ever known a time where we've dropped probably so much resources into a chat during the course of a webinar. There's a lot to grab there. I really hope that everybody who could join us this morning has found some value from it. We will be following up with all of you. For those on LinkedIn, for example, who might have missed out on some of these resources, connect with me, connect with Suki, and we'll make sure that you get everything. I hope you have a really, really good rest of the week. We will be coming back with another job training session soon, but we're going to take a little bit of a break for Easter in April, and then we'll be back in May. And thank you all so much for joining us. And Suki, thank you for all of your time.
You're very welcome.
Really Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.